Hello, everybody, and welcome. My name is Allison Calvert, and I will be the host for this TLC session. We are excited that you have joined us today for Back to School for the Adult Brain. Please welcome Kristi Knight.
Hello, everyone. First, I'd just like to say that I am a recent Ashford graduate. Last spring, I finished a bachelor's in cognitive studies, and I'm super excited to be here today with everyone. So, in addition to that degree, I'm also a certified brain fitness, health, and wellness coach. And so I do some speaking for teenage stress in the teenage brain, early learning, and so forth. So I found this quote pretty interesting and very reflective of the process when I went through this just the past few years. Tell me and I forget, teach me and I remember, but involve me and I learn. I really felt like that was pretty indicative of how we are as adult learners, and so liked that quote. So today we're going to learn about why adults go back to school, how adult brains learn, what are some common struggles for adult learners, and some recommended study tips for success. So why do adults go back to school? Most people would find the familiar family, financial, job advancement, change of career, change of life. But I found these statistics pretty interesting. 26% of those back in school are raising family. 58% are working while they're in school, with 25% of those being in at least one online class. And by 2020, 65% of all of our jobs are going to require some form of post-secondary education. So I found that interesting. And then 85% of students are enrolled in higher education are what we are considered to be non-traditional learners. One of the things that I did not include on here, but just occurred to me, is that I read an article recently that said 27 is the new 18. So apparently that is our new 18 years old, where we've graduated. Now we're 27 when we start this post-secondary education. So how does an actual adult brain learn? Well, around the 1850s, 1890s, there were several different psychologists and neuroscientists that kind of proposed the idea that the brain might be plastic, might be able to learn. However, largely those ideas were rejected. And people just kind of said, no, it's really pretty fixed and you don't really learn much past, 18, maybe early 20s. But in the late 1940s, early 1950s, Donald Hebb wrote some literature and was kind of coined for the phrase, neurons that fire together, wire together. And so we found that was pretty indicative of where we are now. Now we know that we can continue learning, we do continue learning as long as we want. So it isn't a fixed process. The brain isn't in that static state of not being able to continue to learn. So yeah, pretty exciting. Adult brains, though, do learn, in my opinion. These are very common to how children and teens learn. We use experience as a base for understanding. Adults utilize practical, everyday knowledge for solving problems, which is a little different than how we start learning in our higher education, where we're starting to use more, they're wanting us to use more of the critical thinking skills. We tend to be task and goal driven, though. We want to know what we're learning. We want to apply relevance to that learning and how it's going to help us in the future. And obviously, just like anyone else, we require repetition to strengthen those critical thinking and problem-solving skills. So not much different than the average little bear. So it's important to keep learning. We build our brains that way. It's good for us, and research does show that continued learning helps prevent against aging and the early onset of dementia and other cognitive-related disease. I know in many of my classes, I had several people in their 70s, and I think one class, maybe someone in their 80s that had come back. So I just found that fascinating and very inspiring. So there's hope for me to continue learning for the next 40 years, I guess. These are some common struggles for the non-traditional learners. Some of these are in articles, different areas that I found information, but I found interesting some of the top places say financial aid, the enrollment process, the registration, transcript ordering, prior learning assessments. Those are some of the top key factors that keep students from entering or kind of roadblock or jam their process of getting started. Some other research pointed to things such as being unfamiliar with technology, computer softwares, and libraries are different now. They're all online, so that's all different. But we also have, a lot of adults who are just flat out afraid for taking math and writing and doing research projects and things like that. And then, of course, things such as stress, poor time management, and procrastination are going to come into play. Family obligations, illness, and lack of support. Those three were the top reasons why students will drop out of school once they have gone back. So how can you be successful as a non-traditional learner? Well, I think it's very important to find the right learning environment and know your learning style and strengths, weaknesses. I think it's important to have a growth mindset. I think it's very important to surround yourselves with peers and support, knowing when you have tutoring available, or find peers in your class where you might be struggling, or you might see that they may be stronger in an area than you are. I think it's important to reach out to those. I know during my time at Ashford, I reached out to some people, and I had several people reach out to me when it was a concept or something that was more difficult or more challenging that maybe someone didn't have as much experience with. So I think that's really important when you're in an online environment in particular, because you're not in a classroom. And so having someone that you can touch base with and having that support is really important. Of course, as well as family support, but I think too, just in your class, even if you just had one person that you could pair up with, I find that important. Knowing what support is available. There's lots of course, for library and writing papers and math support and things like that, but often professors will help you as well. So I think it's important to know what support strategies you have available and always ask when in doubt. And probably one of the most important things that I think you can do as a non-traditional learner is to practice self-care. Understanding that you are going to have stress, you are going to have roadblocks, you are going to have seasons of your life where going to work and studying and reading and writing papers is stressful, and it's a lot to do. But knowing how to respond to those physical signs of stress and those emotional needs when it does occur. And I think that's really important to know when you're pushing your boundaries. Maybe you do need to take a week break. Maybe you do, need to cut back at work or do something. So I think taking care of yourself is really important. So visions, goals, plans, and actions require dedication, hard work, persistence, sacrifice, failure, which all leads to success. And here are some study tips for success. These are some things that I actually tell the people that I work with, especially, but obviously finding a good location to do your schoolwork is important. Probably not in the middle of the kitchen. And finding out which time of day is best for you to study, and then be consistent with that. I know when I first started back, I was always trying to do my study at night, and I'm tired at night. I have worked a hard, long day, and I've come home and dealt with family, and that was not the best time of day for me. For me, I'm better in the morning. So I had to restructure my day and my schedule so that I had time in the morning to get those kinds of things done. Maybe I read at night, but maybe I did the actual work the next day. So I think really understanding how you work best and really thinking about that early on will really set a tone for how you keep a good schedule, how you're consistent, and where you know you work best. There were times where I had to pack up and go to the library. So I think, knowing that is very important. So I put choose a sensory-friendly environment on here. And the reason I did that is because we often are overwhelmed by sensory stimuli. It can distract us. Maybe we're in a cold room. Maybe the lighting is too harsh. Maybe we're not comfortable. So understanding that will contribute to how long we'll hold our attention, and how effective we're going to absorb the information and be willing to sit there and do the work. So I feel like that's really important. Of course, time management tools, calendars, plan ahead. I'm not a great phone. I like to look at the phone calendar, but I make lists on paper. So I think understanding what time management tools work best for you is super important. Find an accountability partner to check in with weekly. This kind of goes back to the peer mentor, whether it's someone in your class, or maybe it's your spouse, just figuring out, what works best for you. Of course, practicing stress reduction, we talked about that, getting plenty of sleep. Yikes. Sorry about that. Incorporating brain breaks and allowing time to kind of rest and digest information. I always would incorporate, when I had to do something for a long period of time, stretching, moving, standing, and breaking up large assignments into more manageable tasks. That's important too, not trying to do like huge chunks of time. Knowing your learning style, your strengths and your weakness. So learning styles, there's lots of different assessments you can do online. Some people say they're a visual learner, an auditory learner. We actually use all of those things to learn. But I think understanding that if you struggle with reading or you struggle with a concept that's unfamiliar, there are a lot of things online. There are YouTube videos, there are audiobooks, there are other resources out there to help you get the information. It's not all about using just the textbook that you're given. There were often many times when maybe I had to compare and contrast information that I would go to a YouTube video and watch maybe how someone else, how they presented the information to try to get my mind in that mind frame of how to compare and contrast these things. So that was super helpful for me. So just because you're given a set of tools in a classroom doesn't mean that's the only thing that you can do. Also not on here, but I also like to write things and highlight things, and that's how I learn. That's how I remember information well if I've written it, but not everyone is that way. Maybe you're a typer, or maybe you like to teach the information to someone else, and maybe that helps you. So there are just lots of different ways, but understanding really how you learn best, what environment, and what tools make you most successful. And I can't stress this one enough. When I first started back to school, I have to say, I didn't know this at the time, but I would get really, it'd be late at night and I'd be tired and I'd want, a soda, or I'd want something that was not good for me, the sugar, to keep me up, to keep me going. But what that actually does is creates more inflammation in the brain. It actually dehydrates you more, and it actually causes more damage to the learning process than help. So when I switched those things up to some nuts, some protein, maybe some peanut butter, and I drank a lot of water, because water, your brain is 80% water, and that's how your brain communicates, these electrical signals. So we need water for our brain to operate optimally. So you want to avoid snack foods, which are high in fats, sugars, sodiums, processed, packaged things. Again, because these create inflammation and they contribute to dehydration, and that's going to compromise our thinking, our processing, our learning, and our memory. And looks like that is all. I didn't want to go too far here, so I'm done a little bit earlier than anticipated. Just make sure I didn't miss anything here. Nope, we got it all. And there's me, if you would like to connect.
Thank you so much, Kristi. I could go ahead and open it up to any questions by unmuting the group.
Hi, this is Maureen Lino. Hi, Kristi.
Hello.
I'm the chair of Cog Studies, and I just want to congratulate our graduate for a fantastic presentation. This is her second time with Ashford. One of the things I wanted to share with you is that now in all of the Cog Studies, we have incorporated brain breaks in all of our weekly assignments. So I just wanted to tag on to that we are asking students to go out and take a walk, listen to music, play with their children, walk the dogs, work out, bike, whatever, and before they attempt to do their rough draft. So hearing you talk about brain breaks, I just wanted to share that with the other faculty here, as well as to collaborate with you that yes, we are indeed incorporating those into all of the courses in the Cog Studies major. If anyone would like to hear more about that, I don't want to take your time, but feel free to reach out to me, Maureen Lino at ashford.edu. Thanks, Kristi, for bringing that up.
Yeah. So I work with a lot of children that have ADHD, and often one of the things that I get a lot is, they have 2 hours of homework at night. How do they get through all this? They're tired. And one of the first things I tell them is, I understand you have soccer and swimming and all of these things, but when they come home, they really need a break. They need a snack that's got some protein in it. They need some water, and they probably need to move, because that's how children learn. That's how really we're born to move. We're not born to sit stationary for long, long periods of time. So I always tell them, let them have a break, let them run around, let them bounce off the walls for however long, and then break those assignments up into, and maybe it's, 10, 15-minute increments, because that's maybe what they need to get through. And yeah, it might take a little bit longer, and if you find that that's taking, a long time, maybe you need to talk to the teacher, whatever. But I really, really, really encourage them to move when they're, maybe they're trying to memorize something or trying to remember or trying to put thoughts into, but move, take a walk. Another thing that I learned in another class, which is kind of interesting, was we talked about chunking and mnemonics. And those are great tools for learning information, especially that aren't familiar to us, but chunking those up and breaking them up into smaller parts. And then another interesting thing along the whole brain breaks was that we talked about how when the brain is, when you are using a focused state, and you're really concentrating and working hard on something, and you're just kind of at like a roadblock or at a dead end, and you've got to power through it, but you just can't do it anymore. You can't come up with what comes next. taking that you are using focused mode in your brain. You're using certain default networks. So you need to switch to what's called diffuse mode thinking and actually take that walk, take those brain breaks, because then it activates the diffuse mode, which is more of a relaxed state. And then all of a sudden, voila, the idea comes to you, the thought comes more easily, but it's that switching between the focused and diffused mode networks that actually is what is happening in this brain break. So it's like being really focused, and then you take a break, maybe when you're driving, and then you're able to get back in the car and go a few more hours. So it's the same type of thing for the brain. We can't just run it in overdrive all the time, and sometimes we do when we're juggling many things. But that's why that works, and that's why it's important. So anyway.
Kristi, I wasn't sure if you saw, Kelly had put a comment in the chat window. How would you recommend incorporating some of these ideas or tips in the online classroom?
Well, let's see. I think the buddy system, maybe pairing somebody up, or maybe even pairing somebody up with someone who's struggling versus someone who isn't. I'm trying to find my thing here. I think that might be interesting. One of the things that I did not like about online learning was that you didn't have interaction, and I'm a people person. And so I wish that I had had more interaction rather than just via email. So maybe, I don't know if there could be a way to Skype or do, I don't know, maybe even once a week or once a month or something to, just create that connection. I think that's important. Feel like you're connected in that classroom. I don't know, maybe too, like on the, like on the brain breaks, if we're having them do a long project, maybe have them write about what they did during that brain break. That might be something you could incorporate. I used a lot of YouTube and audiobooks too for supplemental things, and giving them those resources, maybe giving them some kind of resource. I'm sorry, my dog has decided that she needs my attention and she needs it now. Let's see if there's anything on here. Yeah, I'm reading these comments here about the video, and I agree. I do love the video, and I found it very helpful. Okay, well.
Great.
I think I answered everything on there.
It does look like it. Any other last questions before we close up? Just give a couple of minutes. All right. Well, I just wanted to thank you so much, Kristi, for your presentation, and for all of you for joining us. Be sure to enjoy the rest of TLC. Thank you guys so much.